Welcome to the tutorial Drawing Using the Pencil Tool. In this tutorial, I'm going to clean up the front sketch of the cartoon rabbit so that I can break it down as a cutout puppet in a future tutorial. And to do this, I'm going to use the pencil tool. So to access the pencil tool, you can click on its icon in the Tools toolbar or use the keyboard shortcut Option Y on Mac or Alt Y on Windows. First, I'm going to create a new layer in the timeline and call it Rabbit Clean. Then I'm going to turn on the light table and uncheck any of the objects that I don't want to see in the drawing view. So just like with the brush and eraser tool, there are a few options that you can fool around with in the Tool Properties panel for the pencil tool. The first being the default pencil styles. So there's 6 default styles here. I'm going to choose number 6. And with each of these styles, you have the ability to change the width of the pencil and its smoothing. Unlike the brush and the eraser where you have a minimum and maximum value, you just have a maximum width value because the pencil line has a consistent width all the way through. Once again, if you have a fairly low value for the smoothing, your line will stay fairly faithful, whereas if you increase the smoothing quite a bit, your line will get smoothed out quite a bit as well. So I'm going to start to trace the rabbit. You'll notice that I'm overshooting my lines quite a bit here with the ears, but don't worry about that. We're going to clean that up later in another tutorial. So as you notice here, all of my lines are currently individual strokes. I can move them around and manipulate them as such. But when you draw a cutout character, you don't really want a bunch of separate lines floating around. What you probably want is all of your lines to be merged together as one shape so that you can move them around together. So to do this, you just have to click on the Auto-flatten option in the Pencil Tools Tool Properties. And watch what the difference is as I draw the second ear. So now when I select lines with the rabbit ear, you'll see that all the lines were selected except for this line right here, and that's because this line doesn't actually overlap or cross over the central vector line of the strokes beside it. But all the other lines are selected. So what happens with the auto-flatten with central vector lines is that they actually get grouped together and are considered one shape, even though they look like they still retain their central vector. And just like the other line, can be manipulated as such. I'm just going to continue drawing here for a minute. And then add a swatch. So So what I'm doing here is creating a new swatch for the teeth outline, and I'll show you why in a minute. So say I decide that I want to give the teeth of this rabbit a different colored outline. I don't want to give the teeth a black outline. I'd want to give it this gray outline here. But I also want to have this outline sit underneath the mouth of the rabbit. To do this easily, you just need to select the Draw Behind option here in the Tools property. I'm going to unclick the Auto-flatten. So as you notice, the gray lines, instead of being drawn on top of the mouth, now actually sit behind the mouth. But the only problem is they also sit behind the black outline of the face. So if I want to now bring these teeth forward, or rather bring the outline of the face backward or behind the gray line, I just need to select them. Hold down Shift to select both. And then go to the top menu and select Drawing, Arrange, Send to Back. So now the outline of the face sits behind the teeth, and the teeth outlines sit behind the line of the mouth. So the last thing I'd like to show you is how to use the Auto Close Gap option. So let's click on that. And to see how this option works, you should enable the Show All Strokes feature. So you can go to View, Show Strokes, or use the keyboard shortcut D. So what this feature basically does is it ensures that every stroke you draw will make a closed zone. And this is good for when you need to paint your object, because obviously you can only paint zones that are fully closed. So I'll show you what I mean. So this stroke is not actually touching the black stroke here, or maybe it's like barely touching, but it doesn't cross over. But to make sure that this zone is closed off, this central vector line snapped from being at the end of this stroke to actually jumping over this gap and touching the central vector line right in front. And so what that's basically doing is just letting you know, it's giving you peace of mind that no matter what you do, even if you're drawing really quickly and maybe not completely connecting lines, the software will connect those lines for you and ensure that you have closed zones that you can paint later on. So you can disable the show strokes by using the keyboard shortcut D. Actually, I'm just going to undo that. And that's pretty much it for the tutorial, drawing using the pencil tool. Stay tuned for the next tutorial, drawing with shapes.